German business leaders are urging the new government to move quickly to boost the weak economy. Conservative Friedrich Merz will be the next Chancellor of Germany after Sunday's election paved the way for a coalition with the Social Democrats. He's under pressure to find a way to generate growth in an economy that has shrunk for the past 2 years, but that may not be straightforward. Aoifinn Devitt is Senior Investment Advisor at Moneta. Aoifinn, in recent years, high energy costs in particular, also the cost of labour, have hit German industry and it's struggled to adapt. So what does business want to see now from the new government?
They want to see, I think, a leaning towards some of the shortcomings that Europe has shown relative to the US. So that would be certainly a lot more stimulus and a release of this fiscal brake, the debt brake that has been really keeping investment back. I think they want to see a focus on innovation. We know that defence spending is going to become a new norm across all of Europe, and certainly that is boosting the stock market prospects. And clarity as regards regulation and any perceived anti-business sentiment. I think clarity is what you need to make investment. And these are all the aspects that have been rendering European growth somewhat sluggish.
As you mentioned, the DAX has risen this morning. Do you think investors see some of that clarity coming?
I do. And I think certainly the clarity around the election results. We've seen that over and over again in Europe. We've seen speculation around some extremes prevailing and then the centre holding in the end. I do think that the strong showing of the extremes is a sign of just how precarious some of the political situation is, and perhaps that'll be the force that drives more change, which is clearly what some voters need. So we've seen very strong performance from the DAX year to date and actually outperforming the US markets. So that's a sign perhaps that Europe is coming back from a very low set of expectations.
As you mentioned, though, the German government has a historical reluctance to borrow and is now seeing major demand to invest in defence, but not just. Are they going to be forced to take on a lot more debt than they previously have?
I'd say it's going to be very incremental, very gradual. We certainly have the backdrop of the siren call of too high debt in most other developed nations, predominantly the US. So there's going to be that as a kind of cautionary tale. So I'd say there will be incremental improvement. In the sectors, we know the auto sector has had a very hard time in Germany, particularly with the slump in EV sales. So I'd say that's going to be one area that we need to rejuvenate and resuscitate. So I'd say that areas we're going to see it across the board, but it will be slow. We're not going to see a radical change in that type of approach to spending.
How might bond markets react, though, to higher borrowing by the new German government?
We've seen bond markets be quite a bit more volatile than equity market across the board. So we think that bond markets perhaps are the ones that can sense the precariousness of these high deficits. So I would suggest that bond markets will be volatile and watching very carefully. We've seen that coming out of Germany. We've seen that in the UK. So it's going to be a tightrope that they walk.
On defence in particular, will the new government have to agree to joint EU borrowing, which Germany has previously opposed?
I'd say that is a very strong likelihood. We know that in the last few weeks, we've certainly upped the ante in terms of the necessity of defence spending. We've even seen some statements and rhetoric coming out of the government around no longer being able to rely on the US and really a kind of a split in the allegiances between Europe and the US. So I think the focus very much is on defence spending and will never be more in focus than over the next few weeks. So I'd say that's a very strong likelihood. Anything is on the table at this stage.
That was Aoifinn Devitt of Moneta. Don't forget, you can watch more videos on Reuters.com.